I have a great honor and pleasure to introduce Frederik Ahlemann from Duisburg-Essen University, Germany. He is one of the key researchers in IT management, in particular in strategic questions, and the talk will be today on influence of IT and digital transformation of the company. So Frederik is also chair of Systems and Strategic IT Management Department of Faculty, I think, in the Duisburg-Essen University. He obtained information system diploma from University of Münster in Germany. Worked as a project manager consultant for 2 years. So he has a good background experience on a real application of data transformation and IT solution. So he is also a director of Information System Link. So you know certainly there's a big organization which associates about 30 universities over the world. And Frederik just mentioned that in 2 weeks we will publish his book on digitalization transformation and on influence on IT management, published by Springer. So I think it's a very interesting and current topic in information system theory and application. So floor is yours, Frederik.
Thank you very much for this very warm introduction. I'm very happy to be here. Welcome. It's actually an honor for me to be here and to talk to you, and it's a real pleasure. What I'm going to do in the next more or less 20 minutes, because there's not much time left, is probably not the classic scientific presentation. Rather, it will be the presentation of a scenario. And of course, it's based on research to some degree, but I have to warn you, I will not talk too much about research methods. I will not present too much empirical evidence to you. Rather, I will develop a scenario of how corporate IT might look in 10 or 20 years' time. And this is not meant to be a precise scientific prediction. It's more meant to be like a foundation for discussions. Discussions among researchers as well as discussions among practitioners, especially executives who are responsible for medium-sized or large IT organizations. So my perspective is, first of all, more like an organizational perspective. I'm looking at IT from a managerial standpoint. My presentation will be based on 10 theses of how corporate IT might look like. So I'm looking especially at medium-sized to large corporations, industry, companies from industry. I'm not so much looking at the IT software firms, for instance, to just make that clear at the beginning. I also have to say that this is not only my work. I have a colleague with whom I'm collaborating very intensively, who is Niels Urbach, also from Germany, and we have jointly developed this. So, what are we talking about? Well, first of all, we are talking about digital transformation. And digital transformation is basically everywhere. So when you have a look at the media, when you look what there's published currently, when you look at the discussions going on in the information systems community, when you look at what IT executives are currently talking about, they are talking about digital transformation. And well, what's so special about digital transformation? I mean, we have been using information technology for decades already, right? So there is not much new to it. Well, I think the special thing about digital transformation is that currently a couple of technologies or approaches have gained a certain level of maturity that makes them interesting for many very new fields of application. As we have just seen, maybe not in the business context, but this wonderful presentation about AIS data and what you can do with it from a machine learning perspective was a wonderful example of what we can do today, what we would not be able to do, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago, for various reasons. So what we can see right now in the business context that, for instance, artificial intelligence and robotics attracts a lot of attention. And there are studies out there, predictions that AI and robotics replaces 47% of the jobs in the next 20 years. This is an enormous figure. Be it true or not, I mean, my point is not to say that it's exactly 47%, obviously not, but what I want to say is this digital transformation, the use of these new technologies and approaches have a tremendous impact on business. Another study says that 86% of business executives anticipate an unprecedented rate of technology change in the next 3 years. 25% of the world economy will be digital in 2020, also a very interesting figure, or 38% of business models are threatened by digital transformation or by digitalization. So these are figures not only we know as an academic community, but business and IT executives know these figures as well. And they make up their mind, obviously. They think about, okay, what does this mean for my business? What does this mean for my enterprise? And of course, chief information officers also have these figures. And they think about, what does this mean for my IT organization? And this is what I want to talk about today. What do these figures, what does this digital transformation thing mean for today's IT organizations? And in medium-sized to large companies, we often have IT organizations with several hundred IT professionals. And what will they do in the future? What is the institutional anchoring of the IT organization in the future? These are questions I would like to discuss in the next couple of minutes. So what I'm going to do is the following. First of all, I will identify some key issues of digitalization and their consequences for the business. Then I will try to analyze the challenges of corporate IT resulting from these issues, and then present a scenario based on 10 theses how the IT organization of the future might look like. And these theses will probably some of them will probably find immediate agreement. Some of them will probably be a little provocative, we will see. And hopefully we will have a small but lively discussion afterwards. When we talk, or when I talk about digital transformation, it's important to clarify what I have in mind when I use this term. I'm not talking about incremental business process improvements. So when there is already a business process and you further improve it by, for instance, avoiding media breaks, make it a little more efficient, cost efficient, reducing waste, or saving energy. This is not what I would call digital transformation. Digital transformation refers to the innovative use of information technology to come up with new products, new services, new business models, maybe new ways of organizing your value chain, okay? With significant impact in terms of, for instance, your competitive situation in the marketplace. So again, some examples from the literature. So when you realize 5 times increase in new leads, upsells, and sales cycle time, for instance, through using artificial intelligence in the sales or marketing domain, then this could certainly be disruptive for your competitors as well as for yourself. So again, this is not a really scientific approach I've chosen. So what we did in order to come up with these 10 theses, let me briefly explain that. Of course, we looked at the literature, for sure. But what we did in the last couple of years, Niels and myself, we did a couple of studies. We did a study on digital strategy and how organizations develop digital strategy. We did another study on how today's organizations implement digital innovation management. We did a further study on digital partnerships. And while we did these studies and conducted interviews with business and IT executives, we came across certain patterns And then we went back, looked at the primary data, and we said, okay, wouldn't it be nice to take all these bits and pieces and put them together and develop a scenario of how the big picture might look like? And this is what we actually did. We developed a scenario of corporate IT in the future, and we discussed it with IT and business leaders. We had conversations with them, we evaluated in a way, and today I'm going to present the results. When you want to understand how corporate IT is heading, I think it makes a lot of sense to have at least a brief look where it comes from. So in corporate IT comes from operating mainframes. This is the history, true? So at the very beginning in the 1960s and 70s, people bought these large mainframes and you needed specialists in order to operate them. And then step by step, personal computing emerged. We saw local area networks, we saw client-server computing, we saw the advent of the internet. All of a sudden it became possible to connect suppliers and connect customers. We saw ERP systems, CRM systems, supplier relationship management systems, and all these kinds of things. And then by the latest, in the last decade, all of a sudden, organizations realized, Jesus, we not only have 10 or 20 applications, we have several hundreds in our data center. And this led to a professionalization of IT management. This led to the industrialization of IT management, right? It also led to something that can be labeled IT service management. So organizations realized that the IT department is basically a service provider. It picks requirements and demands from the business and carefully translates these demands and requirements into services and then operates these services, right? And there's nothing bad about it, being a service provider. It's actually a good thing because it means that an IT organization professionalizes, becomes more reliable, becomes more cost efficient, for instance, by means of ITIL, IT Infrastructure Library. And while this process was happening, also IT organizations worked on removing all the slack in the organization. They become more and more efficient. And today, what most organizations have, they have shared service, IT organizations, highly efficient, highly organized, highly professional, but also very reactive, not very innovative, mostly. And this is maybe the problem most corporate IT functions have today. They are perfect in the sense of service management and industrialization, but they are not so good when it comes to creativity and innovation. Which is a problem, because all of a sudden it's no longer only about operating IT services reliable, running applications in a reliable fashion. All of a sudden it's about inventing new things. And when you have been working on establishing a culture of stability, right, of risk avoidance, and all of a sudden everybody yells at you and says, innovation, creativity, then you have a problem. Because the existing organization has serious problems in actually reacting to the demands of the digital transformation. And this is what makes many CIOs, chief information officers, IT managers, what makes them feel uncomfortable. And this is why they are scratching their head and telling us, what do I have to do in order to live up to the expectations? All of a sudden the board of directors is talking about digital transformation and asking the CIO, what is our answer? And the CIO says, well, I have some ideas, but I don't know how to implement them. This is the problem. So, what we have seen in the last couple of years was basically a data explosion. And I think the previous presentation was a wonderful example of what that means. What we currently observe is that we get a better and better virtual image of reality. Very simply said. Okay? We have more and more data about the physical world. We have in many use cases, we have a close to complete picture of what, or we are generally able to create a close to complete picture of the real world and the cyber world. That's interesting. Why is it important from a business perspective? Because, well, basically it means the more information you have about reality, the better you can make decisions. okay, the better you can manage your enterprise. And maybe in the future one can say in 20 or 30 years' time, for most of business use cases, we have enough computational resources. There is potentially an infinity of data collection and generation. It will be easier than ever before to collect information or generate information by sensors, for instance. We will have an infinity of storage, not only storage in our own data center, but maybe storage in the internet. We can easily think of use cases where we simply access already existing knowledge repositories in the internet. We have basically an infinity of computing power, an infinity of networking, and maybe the most interesting part, an infinity of agency. And when I say agency, I mean, well, by means of artificial intelligence and machine learning, computers can become more intelligent. Not only that they can become more intelligent and do things they were not able to do before, they are also, and now we are talking about robots, they can influence the physical world. And this is a huge potential for many, many business-related use cases, not only for internal processes, but also for new products and services. So what's the consequence? And this is my number one thesis. There will be no business without IT. And now you will probably look at me and say, what is the guy telling us? This is not a new story. We've been discussing this for 20 or 30 years already. The point is that we potentially have to rewrite our business administration textbooks. Because look, when you take a business administration or management textbook, what kind of models do you have in those textbooks? These are models that are based on a number of assumptions. For instance, the assumption that the human brain, in terms of computing power, is limited, that we can only process limited information. When you look at marketing models, for instance, or models regarding strategic management, they are quite simple. They are based on the idea that the human being, that by using Excel spreadsheets, for instance, we can process a certain amount of data. But now assume we have really intelligent machines that can collect data from the internet or via sensors and make sense out of that via natural language processing, whatever it takes. All of a sudden, these models are outdated, aren't they? Because by means of artificial intelligence, we can build more comprehensive, more powerful models. Okay? And this is what I want to say. I think that in 10, 20, or 30 years' time, much of the knowledge, the practice-oriented knowledge of business administration and management will be completely outdated. Because we can replace it by intelligent machine, by algorithms that collect more information, that draw better conclusions, that prepare better decisions. Okay, and this will revolutionize our understanding of business administration and management. Thesis number 2. Our classic paradigm of IT management and IT organizations is plan, build, run. What does that mean? It means that you collect requirements and demands from the business, and then you do your annual planning, right? You try to define what will be my IT investments in the next 12 months. Which amount of money will I spend for what kind of application? What will I do with my infrastructure? And all these kinds of things. And once you have done your plan, you execute your plan. You build the new applications, and once you have your new applications, you transfer them into the data center and you operate or run them. Classic IT management paradigm. Well, the paradigm of the future will probably be different. Why? Well, development and operations, so building and running applications, are no longer that important from a corporate perspective. Why are they no longer important? Well, running stuff is probably something you can easily move to an external service provider, Amazon Web Service or Azure or whatever it is. Building applications is also something you can easily outsource. And you will probably outsource because mere programming activities are for various reasons not in the interest of future corporations. Because first of all, they will have a hard time to acquire and retain talented people who can program. The second reason is that they do not differentiate. So programming itself, in a narrow sense, is a not differentiating activity. In the future, it will be about innovation, finding good ideas, then designing solutions, which is something different from programming them. So it's really about the designing. How does the app look like, to give you just one example. And then, once you have designed it, it's about transforming your organization so that the new business model actually works. Okay? Thesis number 3, shadow IT will be a common practice in the future. Shadow IT means that you have unenacted IT projects going on, for instance, in the business. So usually, today, we expect that all IT projects are, to some extent, under the regime of the IT organization, the IT department. And in most organizations, it's forbidden that the business departments run their own IT, which we would call shadow IT. But in the future, it will be normal. Why? Because in times of digital transformation, it makes a lot more sense to have IT specialists directly in the business departments. It doesn't make sense to divide IT and business. So, most people will probably move, so the really skilled people who can do the innovation and design part will move from the IT department to the business department. And the most innovative companies do this already. So, if you look at very innovative banks, for instance, through concepts of co-location, for instance, the IT professionals are already very close to the business professionals. Thesis number 4, networks will become more and more important, not electronic networks, but networks of companies will become more and more important. Most organizations today have a huge challenge because they do not have the capabilities to master digital transformation. Maybe they have the idea what they can do with big data, but they don't have the data scientists. Maybe they have wonderful ideas what they can do with social media mining, but they have nobody who is able actually to implement this. So what you need is partnerships. You need to partner with IT companies, maybe the large ones, maybe small startups, whatever it takes, to close a competency gap and to close a resource gap. So networks, innovation networks, will be more and more important, and you need to proactively manage those networks. Thesis number 5. As computer scientists and information system specialists, we tend to think in systems. So our main focus is the system. When you take a software engineering textbook, it's mostly about systems, right? The system is in the focus. In the future, of course, we still need to be able to engineer systems. There's no doubt about this. This will not lose weight, but the main focus will be the user. We have to look at the user. We have to understand what he or she wants and how we can make her or him happy. So we will see a shift from heavyweight IT to lightweight IT, which means that development and operations are integrated in the lightweight IT world. There's no differentiation between a data center team and a development team. We will have very short deployment cycles. We are not talking about months, we are talking about days. We will have agile development methods, more like a short-term planning, because long-term planning doesn't make any sense in markets where we have disruptive innovations every couple of months. We will have more experimentation, and we will be user-centric. Don't get me wrong, there will still be heavyweight IT for the large back-end systems. But the innovation will mainly, in many, many sectors and many, many industries, happen with lightweight IT. Thesis number 6. Also probably not surprising. We will have commoditized infrastructure, but to a different degree than today. We already have it today. I mean, we have, through standardization, it's relatively easy to replace database management systems, to move from one a platform to another. That's nice already. But in the future, IT infrastructure will be freely traded, commoditized. It will be dynamically purchased and consumed. Maybe we can even trade them on exchanges. Okay. And in Germany, there wasn't a first attempt. Probably they were too early. There was already an exchange for IT services established in Frankfurt. but they closed it, and everybody said this was the right idea, but maybe we were too early. So in the future, maybe when you have a desktop computer and there are some terabytes of data, terabyte disk space left, maybe you can rent it to somebody else easily. Okay? Digitalization obviously is a risk. I don't want to elaborate too much on that because we are running out of time. It is a risk, and as such, it will be a bigger risk in the future because we will depend on our information technology more than ever before. And we will be more vulnerable. And there will be critical infrastructure that can easily be attacked because they also depend on information technology and they are potentially connected to the internet. So there is an increasing amount and diversity of security risks coupled with increasing impact of security incidents. And the consequence will be that in the IT department of the future, we will be more IT security specialists. We will see it from a more holistic picture, not only the technical issues, but also social engineering issues and risks. And we will have them looking at the whole enterprise, at whole value chains, not only at single systems. Number 8, we will have transformable IT architectures. I will make this very short. IT architectures of the future will be managed by code. Also, infrastructure will be managed by code. As we can see this today already with some of the leading infrastructure as a service providers. In the past, we had to move a physical device when we managed infrastructure, right? If we wanted to have a new server, we had to buy a server and put it in our data center. In the future, we just write one line of code. And redesigning the infrastructure, redesigning the architecture means writing some lines of code. So system administration, also physical system administration, will become a question of coding, right? And these infrastructures will be highly dynamic. They will be highly configurable, highly standardized. They will be ubiquitous. Thesis number 9, the end of the IT department. The IT department as we know it today will die. The reason is simple. We no longer need operations, right? Because this will be done by the Azures and Amazon Web Services and you name them of the world. So infrastructure will be operated by external service providers. Developers, well, especially in Germany, organizations today already have a hard time finding developers and retaining them. So mostly this is done by external service providers as well. The specialists who can innovate and the people who can design will move to the business departments. They are also away. Who is left in the IT department? There are some functions left in the IT department, namely security and compliance. We cannot just give this to the business department or to externals because it's too important. It's a strategic job, okay? And we need a holistic picture of security and compliance, right? So we need some experts on this topic. We need some guys who organize provider and partner management. I think that's also clear. Because you cannot leave this up to the business departments, for a very simple reason, because you need to orchestrate this. When you have several business departments and they are approaching Microsoft independently, then this is a bad thing. You need to orchestrate this. Third thing, you need some guys who are responsible for architecture and business continuity management. You need some for governance, and you need some people for strategy and portfolio management. Although the notion of strategy will significantly change, we will not talk about IT strategy any longer. It will be more like a digital strategy, and it will be short to mid-term. It will probably not be long-term, especially when we talk about consumer industries. So this will be the IT function, and where is it located? Below the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, as it is the case today in many organizations? Probably not. It will probably, because of the strategic nature of this, because the whole company depends heavily on IT, it will probably locate it next to the board of directors. More like a step line function, but not as a classic IT department. Okay? Then thesis number 10, demographics and personal needs become more important. I don't know a lot about the labor market here in Poland, but in Germany we have a really interesting situation. Basically, we have full employment in the IT market. So every IT specialist gets a job. And we have a significant demand for highly skilled and motivated people. And many organizations, many industries have severe problems in attracting and retaining skilled IT personnel. Really, severe problems. I've recently talked to a couple of CEOs, and guess what they told me? They told me, you know what we are currently doing? We are running a due diligence project. We are investigating whether we are going to buy a software company. Not because they were interested in the products of the software company, they were interested in the software company because they wanted to have the people. They are buying software companies just for the sake of the people. It's really interesting what's going on there. So we need to be a company, an organization that is attractive for young professionals. We need to have an eye on demographics, we need to have an eye on the value system of young professionals, and we need to have an eye on the different employment history of people. We need to take this into consideration. So what's the bottom line? The current state of IT organizations is very often, or most IT organizations are very often unable to keep up with the rapid change towards digitalization. They are not well prepared. As a reactive service provider, you are not well prepared for the demands or for the requirements of the digital transformation. So today's IT organizations have to change, and enterprises have to prepare, and our projection is, our scenario is that the IT department in its current form will probably disappear, which does not mean that there is no IT function in the organization. It's just that the activities are elsewhere. The processes are no longer in the IT department, they are elsewhere. Either we use external service providers, or we have processes going on, let's say, in the business departments. So I have to apologize because this was a very short presentation, actually. I expected to have a little more time. Hopefully it was not too condensed. Thank you very much for your attention. Maybe you have questions. Thank you.